Okay, so I am excited to introduce our two speakers for tonight. They are going to talk all about project management, which I tried to explain like super briefly in my email to you all, but they are going to go way farther in depth and give you all the information that you need. So, first of all, we hope. Is that? Yes. So first of all, we have Tom McGraw, graduate of '93. He works at ASM Research in Fairfax. He holds a BA in history from Christendom, a master's degree in history from George Mason. He actually worked at Christendom for 10 years, and he is the one that started Life on Tap. So we give him. All right. So you started here in 2005, is that right? Or when Life on Tap started?
Well, that was when I started with the career office. And that's
Okay.
when I started. So I was starting work in 97 was my first year of working.
97, okay.
But 2005 was when I started the event because that was the first year I was in Europe.
Yes, so he actually held my job back in 2005 to 2007. Excellent. So he began his IT career on the help desk, moved on to be a tech writer, an operations manager, and is currently a project manager of ASM's cloud team. He earned his PMP in 2016, which they will tell you what a PMP is. And then next we have Gerry Zapaiain, class of 85. He is a senior medical technology specialist at the Department of Commerce, International Trade Administration in Washington, D.C. He holds a BA in political science from Christendom, a master's degree in international trade from Texas A&M University, and a master's certificate in project management from the George Washington University. He has had several positions within ITA, including senior advisor to the undersecretary, and is on the ITA coaching cadre. He earned his PMP in 2012. So give them a hand and your attention. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do I really need this? Can you hear me? It sounds very different. Okay, I guess I'll. When I was here, we didn't have microphones. This is kind of new to me, you know, as Walter can attest. We were lucky when we had hot water more than one day in a row. But this is great. Thank you very much. What a wonderful event this is, because when I was at Christendom, you know, we were here studying and learning all kinds of wonderful things and making great long-term friendships with some really good people. And when we were done, we were just kind of like, you know, so now what? So that was kind of a challenge. So this is really good. I'm so glad, Tom, that you started this, because you kind of shared that kind of lost feeling when we graduated from Christendom. What are we doing now? And there really is so much that you can do, because when you've graduated from this school, really, you can do anything. What I mean by that is you can't graduate from Christendom if you haven't worked hard, studied hard, lived up to expectations, and can really do a good job. So believe me, you're here for a reason, and you're doing a great job. So congratulations for you. Now, that said, this is a presentation that I have done for project manager, so I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm going to skip quite a few of the slides, but just to give you an idea of what project management is. Now, you hear the term project management, well, you know, what's that? Okay, actually, it's a very loaded term. There's a whole discipline behind it. There is a certification behind it. Once you are known as a PMP, that is a recognized international standard. The body of knowledge, the project management body of knowledge, which is the main text or the reference for project management, is an ISO standard. I don't know if you know what that means, but just trust me. What it means is that it's known throughout the world. If you have the term letters PMP after your name, it means something. Like if you were to have CPA after your name. Maybe some of your parents are certified public accountants. I don't know. Maybe somebody is, what have you, but you know what that is. You might know what that is. Okay, anyway. So, what's it all about? So, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'm going to explain to you what is a project, the background and cred of project management, and then I'll talk to you about how you can be a better project manager. Okay, so, this is every group project you've ever been in, right? This is the guy who just has no idea what's going on, the guy who doesn't show up, the guy who shows up at the beginning and at the end to take the credit, and this is probably most of you, right? It's not good to be any of them. It's not good to be this guy. You don't want to be the person doing all the work. You want to make sure that other people are participating as well. So don't be any of them. okay? So why bother? Why would you want to know about project management? Could you manage a project in India or Singapore with a local staff? And yes, we've done this where I work. Could you build a house and deliver it on time and on budget? That's pretty different from doing something in India or Singapore. Could you walk into a supervisory position on an ongoing project? Well, you won't be walking into supervisory positions when you graduate from Christendom, but someday you will. And could you resuscitate an ailing project? So just a couple definitions. A project is a temporary endeavor with a definite beginning and end undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So screwing on toothpaste caps is not a project. That's a process. You need your caps on the toothpaste, but that's not it, okay? And project management is the planning, scheduling, and controlling of project activities to achieve three extremely important things: quality, cost, and time objectives. Remember those three things because they are at the very core of project management. So, again, this is for an older crowd. You might remember I Love Lucy. In this episode, Lucy is doing a commercial for a product called Vitamita Vegemin. Anybody seen that one? Right? Okay, you remember how it goes? She's doing all these takes. And at the end, she reads the ingredients, 25% alcohol. So after about 50 takes, this is what she looked like. But there was a product to come out of this. In this episode, Lucy and Ethel are wrapping up chocolates down, and as they go down the conveyor belt, and they fall behind, so they start stuffing them in here and eating them and hiding them, putting them in their pockets. That's not a project, that's a process, okay? There is not a definite product to come out of that, as there is here with this commercial. Here's something more of your generation. This is more of a project manager, an orchestra director, and that's not a project manager. You know who this guy is? Taskmaster, good. At work, nobody knew who he was, but I knew this crowd would know, okay? You're not out there whipping your people to do stuff. That's not how a project manager works. It's much more like that. I mentioned this triple constraint: time, cost, and scope. These are the three elements that you have to balance when you're managing a project. This is an extremely rich concept that involves important decisions that you would make as a project manager. I mean, this is life or death, okay? And it manifests itself in so many ways. But here's how I like describing the triple constraint. This is on my door at the office. Good, fast, or cheap? You want something from me? Pick two. If you want it fast and good, it's not going to be cheap, because I'm going to need staff, I'm going to need resources, I'm going to need all kinds of stuff if you want it done quickly. If you want it good and cheap, it's not going to be fast, because I'm not going to spend my waking hours or my important hours doing it. I'm going to get around to it whenever I feel like it. And if you want it fast and cheap, it's not going to be good. That's for sure. And that's probably the best one, because there was an office director at the International Trade Administration, and I removed her name deliberately for this presentation. She would say this: if you want it bad, you're going to get it bad. And I've used that for my supervisor. Oh, you want it bad? Oh, you're going to get it bad. That's for sure. All right. So anyway, a project is a novel undertaking, creates a new product, service, or result. Its delivery signals completion, is constrained by limited resources, begins when resources are dedicated, and has owners or sponsors. Now, here's where it gets a little deep. So I'm going to start skipping through some of this stuff here, okay? But I will tell you that project management became a science, especially after World War I with Henry Gant's shipbuilding, okay? So people were trying to figure out how to encapsulate this discipline. So there have been written works on the subject. In 1994, there were only 20. In 2014, there were 100,000 works on the subject. And it's not just people, skills, or software. There really is a discrete discipline behind it. So also I mentioned the PMP Credential was launched in 1984. I have a relatively low number PMP Credential, which is great because everybody who comes in after you has a higher number, so it's kind of a cool thing. I like to rub it in on people. It's a real standard certification, and it has accreditation from the International Organization for Standardization. I won't get into it too much more, but also the project management body of knowledge has been translated into 10 major languages. Again, the science, the discrete science and discipline of project management is known worldwide. And I'll explain some of my experience with that in a little bit. All right, okay, more cred. If you, especially if you're in IT, the project management project management credential is also very helpful if you're in IT, because in IT you're delivering projects all the time. Okay, I do it all the time, not necessarily IT projects, but I'm delivering projects all the time. So if you are an IT person, if you're interested in IT, it's very much worth your while to look at this. All right. Okay, there's a real world in project management. Okay. I won't go through this, but. Oh, you know these guys? Okay, all right. Just don't have surprises, okay? All right. Okay, here's a fun one. A project manager has to be an expert and a diplomat. So how do you think Captain Kirk might be affected by the triple constraint? Time, cost, and scope. Okay, oh, got a hand.
He's only got a 5-year mission.
It's a 5-year mission, okay. That's one thing, that's time. What about cost?
He doesn't have an endless supply of red shirts.
That's right, that's right. He's got 2 here, he can't lose those 2. But, you know, like the Murphys and all those guys, yeah, he loses them all the time. Okay, go ahead, please.
Is infinite space for scope?
Well, yes, he has infinite space for scope, but he's not involved in everything. It's, you know, well, I mean, for scope, it's the problem that he's trying to solve, right? You know, the Klingons on the starboard bow, what's he going to do about that, right? And he has to wrap it up all within an hour, okay? Okay, so that's how Captain Kirk is affected by the triple constraint. Okay. More stuff, okay, fine. All right, another. You need to celebrate your project when it's finished. And here's William Shatner and Sherry Jackson after filming What Are Little Girls Made Of? And it's obviously not part of the show because you can see the backdrop here is fake. He's not wearing his regulation duty boots. He's just having a great time with the model of the day, right? So he's having a great time because they finished filming, all right? So that's important. And you're gonna make it after all. Remember that. Now, of course, when I presented this to an older crowd, they understood every single picture. But anyway, all right, so you kind of have an idea of what project management is, what a project is, what the discipline is, more or less. It's extreme, there's a lot behind it. If I were to say, do you understand what accounting is? Yeah, sure, 1, 2, 3, 4. But what's a CPA? Why would you have a degree in accounting? Okay, there's a lot behind it. And I would say it's pretty analogous to that. Okay? All right, so I'll step aside and let Tom take over for a minute. I'll be back. Good?
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm really glad that this was a co-presentation with Gerry, who I've actually known for a long time, Tom and Gerry, okay? And so now you'll remember our names, I'm sure, later on. But yeah, Gerry, I've known he was a project manager professional for a number of years. And so when he said he had already created some slides and so on, I was very excited about that. I said, well, that's a great idea. Bring those slides, and we have a lot of the work already done there. So those are awesome. What I want to talk a little bit about is I'm kind of more of a storyteller, and so I can just tell you the story of my life pretty much. I'm going to cut it down as quickly as possible, but it will tell you a little bit about project management by the time we're done. As already talked about, I attended Christendom. Those were great years. Enjoyed them thoroughly. I was, on the basketball team, the soccer team. I was an RA. I was an okay student, and I really enjoyed myself here. And I wanted to be a teacher. That was my aspiration at the time. I loved history. Dr. Carroll was, the best. And I was in his class. And so life was good. But shortly after, and I went on to go get a master's in history. I'm like, I'm going to get this master's, PhD. This is what I'm going to do with my life. Be a teacher, history, like Dr. Carroll. And life just kind of took over. And it has a way of doing that sometimes. And so eventually I found myself back at Christendom, but I was working as a staff member. And staff member is fun at Christendom. It's really, really awesome. And so I was here for 10 years, and but as I left, as I was leaving, I kind of had this sense that I wanted to get more involved in information technology. And Christendom was not necessarily the best place to be on the cutting edge of that. So a friend of mine was starting up a IT company, and so I took a chance, and believe it or not, I took a pay cut leaving Christendom to go work for an IT company. You can do some crazy stuff when you're when you want something. Sometimes you got to take a step back. So that's what I did, and I was the 5th employee at this company, and so began that process. And after about 18 months, I realized this company was also maybe not the best way for me to break into IT because it was rather small. Something more established might be helpful. So I applied for a job at a company called ASM Research. And I got the job. I basically, on the second page of my resume, I had this little sentence on there that I had just added, and it said that I had done documentation of software. And it was like a one-day project. I had written 10 steps of how to log in or something. Like, it was really minor. Took some screenshots, and here you go. And so when I interviewed for the job as a tech writer, actually I was interviewing for a help desk job, and they said, well, we really want you for this tech writer job. And I was not a tech writer, and I was like, okay. And they said, yeah, we saw this documentation section on your resume. We think you can do this. And I didn't really think that I could, but I said, okay, sounds good. And that's another thing I want to talk about is you have to be somewhat fearless. Take a chance on things. Things aren't always going to be what you expect them to be. It's not going to be in a little, cookie cutter situation. It's going to be very dynamic as you're launching out into the deep, as Dr. O'Donnell would say, okay? So when you launch out into the deep, that water is deep, and you're in like a rowboat, okay? So it can be scary, but you have to be fearless. And God is there to help you. He's going to help you. You make some mistakes, it's going to be okay. Things will generally be okay. So make sure you keep your rosary with you and things like that as well. Okay, you have that trust in God. So anyway, the job wasn't really a great fit for me, but I did it for about a year, and as it turned out, my boss was a guy who, he was in charge of a project, and he was a project manager. And the project was to migrate our system from one hosting facility to another hosting facility. And this is a real task. Like IT projects go, this is a task that a lot of competent, brave, amazing people will say, I want no part of that. It's too risky. I'd like to be over here working on a nice, stable project that I can be confident I'm going to get the job done and have a nice, clear, everything's clear. A migration from one hosting facility to another is not clear. So anyway, the project wasn't going well, and someone had just basically failed to do their job. They were in charge of managing a testing team. And I had nothing to do with this. And I heard the yelling down the hall when my boss found out that the testing team was 4 weeks behind schedule. And then I was just working along, and about 5 minutes later, my boss showed up on my desk and said, "I have a job for you. I need you to take over the testing team for 1 week," because we only have 1 week at this point. We had 5 weeks, now we have 1 week. And we need to get this job done. We need to get it done right. Can you do this? And I said, sure. So, long story short, we got the job done. Cybersecurity testing, you're looking for vulnerabilities, have to do pretty basic things, but you got to do it right, you got to do it thoroughly. And we did it, we got the job done, we migrated the system successfully, and then my boss ended up being put in charge of the operations team. So a few months later, he came to me and said, "I don't know how much you like being a tech writer, but I'd love for you to join me on the operations team." So I said, sure, and joined him there. Now, just again, example of what things can happen. There was a weird salary freeze thing going on. So even though I was getting a promotion, I had to tell my wife, Heather, and by the way, without Heather, my job probably would be selling hot dogs at a hot dog stand or something like that, okay? So Heather is the reason why I can do any of the things that I'm able to do. But anyway, and our 26th wedding anniversary is tomorrow, so. But anyway, so I had to explain to my lovely wife, Heather, yeah, I have all this amazing, extra responsibilities and this great promotion with my new boss, and he has all this faith in me, and we can do this, and we're gonna have all this great stuff. But there's a freeze on all salary raises, so I'm being paid the same. Is that okay? And Heather said, as long as you put in for a new job while you're doing this one, sure. So I said, sounds good. So I was getting all this great experience, and then I put my resume out there. And as it turned out, and I ended up winning these awards with the team, like Employee of the Year and stuff like that. We were getting all these awards for what we had done. But again, because of this weird situation, I wasn't really seeing the show me the money type of thing, right? So it was a real problem. So I'm applying to these other jobs. Well, I ended up getting another job at the Department of Interior. And at the job interview, fascinating, I'll just give you the quick thing, which was the question I was never expecting to get. The job interview was going great, awesome, they loved me. And then they said, "What's your favorite book?" Sometimes I have this brain situation where if something is in my head and it's the right answer, the truth, I can't think of anything else to say. And the guy was pretty secular, and I said, and of course you can't hesitate either, or you look like a complete dope as well. So I just said, "Story of a Soul." And the guy was like, "I've never heard of that one." "What's it about?" So, well, it's about this Carmelite nun who lived in France, and she basically had a philosophy of how to love everybody better and to give of yourself. He said, wow, I like that. That sounds great. So anyway, they ended up offering me the job. So don't be afraid. So I got back to my boss. His name's Cleon, amazing name, Cleon. This guy was incredible. And he says, I said, I have a new job, Cleon. Thank you so much for everything you've trained. It wasn't his fault I wasn't getting paid any money. And he says, yep, absolutely, understand. And I'm going to inform the vice president of the company. Okay, absolutely. And then about 10 minutes later, I was back in Cleon's office, and he said, we want to talk. And we had this whole thing we're planning for you. We didn't realize this was going to happen, and we're sorry. We know basically you've been screwed over, and we have this package. You're going to make $5,000 more than what they're offering you. We're going to send you to project management professional classes. We're going to help you get your PMP certification, and we really hope you stay. So I stayed. And I went to go take those classes, and I had heard of the PMP. I had looked at the book. I looked at this book like years before. Like, there's no way, there is no way I'm ever going to be able to get this certification. There's a lot of math. Don't be afraid, though. Seriously. Because now, there used to be more math. There's only like 5 math questions on the exam. Okay? So you don't have to be afraid anymore. But when you look at the book, it can be really intimidating. And so anyway, the classes were great. I loved the classes. I went to go take the practice exam. I bombed it. And I kind of gave up, truthfully. And then one day, I don't remember why or how, but Gerry contacted me and said, hey, I got all these PMP study guide stuff. Would you like them? I don't know how you heard that I was even a candidate. But anyway, one thing led to another, and he sent me all of his stuff. He had just passed his exam. So I started to study a little bit more on my own. And in the end, I ended up having to go to this thing called PMP Boot Camp. And it is intense. It was 5 days, started at 8 a.m., finish at 6 p.m., have homework till 1 a.m., back in class the next morning at 8 a.m. for 5 days. Intense. And then you schedule your PMP exam a couple days after this, and you hopefully will pass. So I did all that. I told my family, basically, you're going to see me, but not see me. I'm going to have like earplugs in. I won't be, I'm basically not here, even though I'm here. And so after all that time, I went and took the exam. And as Gerry said, it is a very hard test. If you prepare, it's multiple choice. It's 200 questions, 4 hours. And they don't even really tell you what you need to get to pass. You just kind of have to do well. So as Gerry said, you kind of hit the submit button and you're just sort of praying that it all works out. And by some miracle, it did for me. Again, that's the God factor that comes in. So fast forward a number of years after getting my PMP, this is something that definitely, if you're a motivated person, if you're a person who can be fearless, who is willing to take on adventure projects, work with people, be a good communicator. This is something that you can do. There's all kinds of projects, and IT is a great field. It's a growing field, and I couldn't write a line of code to save my life, but here I am, a project manager. And after a number of years, I went on vacation last August, went to Alaska. Incredible. You need to go to Alaska. It's utterly beautiful. And I got back from Alaska, and my boss, Cleon, retired. I have a new boss. He's amazing as well. And he said, so while you were gone, we were talking, and we want to put you in charge of the cloud project effort. And this is a migration from our current hosting facility, remember I had done this before, into the cloud. So, right there. No. So this is a cutting edge project that requires, again, it's kind of risky, it's kind of scary. But they asked me to be in charge of it, and I accepted. Are you surprised by that? And it's been a great adventure, a great learning experience to be on that project. We have an amazing team, and I look forward to working with them every day. So my message is saying yes is a very, very good thing to remember to do. And there's more about that later on. All right, I'm done for now.
I think last time I talked to Tom, I wouldn't be lowering the microphone so much. I probably would have raised it. But anyway, so Tom was talking about how he discovered project management and how it became part of his life. For me, it had to do with this. I was in a course called the Executive Leadership Development Program, which takes people from the different bureaus within the Department of Commerce and trains them for future management positions. And I was there with other people from different bureaus, from Bureau of the Census, from Bureau of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and I was there from the International Trade Administration, and we were assigned a project. So most of them took a piece of paper and started working out something like this. And I asked them, what are you doing? And they said, we're doing a WBS. What's a WBS? A WBS, a work breakdown structure. Like, what's the problem? You know, don't you get it? No, I don't get it. They refused to work with anyone from International Trade Administration because we didn't know anything about project management. So that's when I said, okay, my gosh, there's something I need to learn here. There's something that I'm missing, something that these guys know that I don't. So on my own, I went and I studied project management so I wouldn't look like that. And what was really wonderful about it is that when I got it, when I was working toward it and finally took the exam or what have you, I was working with different international organizations, especially one in Singapore called Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. You may have heard of APEC. And I was doing programs with them, and I happened to mention, oh, I just got my PMP. And all these Singaporeans were like, great, we all have PMPs too. And I had no idea that this was such a big thing in Singapore, for example. Throughout Asia, it's very well known. As a matter of fact, when I first started studying this back in 2010, thereabouts, most of the videos that I was finding on YouTube had an Indian accent. Most of these things were coming from India, although this is a discipline that was curated and invented and quantified in the United States. It took off internationally much more before it came here. So anyway, so I was just going to talk about how I came into that. But I think one of the things that we were also going to talk about is how we ended up at Christendom, okay? Well, for me, simply by accident, okay? When I got here, it was more like Camp Christendom. So take 1985, subtract 4 years, and we get almost 1979, right? I get 1981 when I started. And Walter was a sophomore. A junior? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Walter. You're even older. Okay, Walter was a junior, but we all looked up to Walter. Gosh, Walter and Doug, wow, can I be like them? And half of the school was in trailers, the other half was down, do you still call it the quad? Okay, all right. The guys were in the quad, the girls were up in the trailers. We had a couple trailers where we had a record player and Walter's lovely collection of records, which is just absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Walter. And I showed up here, I heard about it because I had been living outside of the country and I met a family called the Peaks, who were very much involved in the formation of Christendom College back in the days of only McGraw and Dr. Warren Carroll and you know the founders. And they told me, what about this wonderful, great place, Christendom College? I said, okay, great, well, you know, I'll try it out. They didn't tell me a whole lot, and I think that was deliberate. Because by the time I committed, it was kind of too late to ask a lot of questions. So I came, and we pulled in here, and remember, it's about 6 trailers, and then a couple of trailers, we called them the rec trailers for recreation. The Regina Celli building, we didn't even call it that at that time, and then the quad, and that was it. And I was like, oh no, what did I do? But fortunately, you know, I realized what the spirit of the school is, and what it was, and what it is, and it's the same. And I got to meet really great people like Walter and Doug, and Dr. Carroll, and some of my fellow students who are also now staff as well. And I realized just what a special place this was. In the beginning, I thought, yeah, I'll be here a couple years and take off. And, you know, and of course I had some of my own interior battles. I hate this place, I love this place, I hate this place, I love this place. And then later I realized, look, I came here for a reason, I was put here for a reason. It wasn't an accident, so I stayed the 4 years. And I really learned a lot, not just about, again, the wonderful subjects that I learned here, but how to deal with people. So that's something that you're gonna have to take, that you will take with you. That's extremely important for a project manager or for anything that you want to do. Because you're going to need to work with other people to advance, to get what you want, to have a secure position. You need to work with other people. I have gotten so many assignments, so many really cool things to do within my own job, just because I get along with people. The health ministry of Peru just sent me down to, well, before this happened, sent me down to Lima to talk to them about medical device regulations, because it's something that I do, but just because they like it when I'm there. And you can do the same thing too. So this is something that you're learning here. You're learning how to get along with people, how to be respectful, how to converse, how to think, how to be thoughtful of others, how to put yourself in other people's positions, how to really care for other people, how to understand how they are important to you as well. So that's something that you will take from here, from Christendom, regardless of what it is, what you major. Okay.